everyone, this is Point and Click Gaming, and I'm not gonna lie to you, this is the third time I've tried recording this video. The first time I didn't capture the video properly, the second time I didn't capture the audio properly, so hopefully third time's the charm. Even the maps 21 through 25 aren't really recorded that well, but that's just the way it is because I think around map 15 to 20 I already started getting burned out, so I'm basically just trying to finish this just to get to the finish line. Um, Previously when I was showing off, I was at 1661, so it was top 38. Now I'm at top 36. Really round numbers, 666, 36, which is 6 squared, and then 566. I'm at like 86.9% win rate. Still not as good as some of the top players. When I was 1500, the top player was at 2136. Now that I'm at 1666, they're 2300. So the top players are climbing much faster than me, even though my elo is much lower than theirs. They're like 800. I'm like 740 734 points away from them, like literally half my score. The gap between first and the gap between first and 36 is the same as the gap between 36 and 2000 or something. It's kind of insane. Like if you subtract 666 points, which is like the top 1000, I'm that the gap between that is further than top 1036, so 964 places, and 35 places. Man, the gap between the top 1% and the 0.1% and the 0.01% is just so huge. Anyway, enough about introductions. Let's get into the tier list or map openings. Let's take a look at map 26. So map 26 is actually a relatively newer map. Oh, there's the drawings. I'm so sad. Map 26, not a lot of theory. The Jumping Java pointed out that there is a tank mismatch in the south here. So you'll notice that blue has an extra tank right here. So blue's obviously going to exploit that. The only way I've found to mitigate it is by retreating all these troops on the front line back to the cities. I mean, red, all of their cities are concentrated, so it's much nicer. So is blue. The reason why I say this is relatively blue-sided, it's heavily in favor of blue, is because blue is a very natural choke point here if blue wants to pull their units back to the city, and red can't really do much about it. Whereas blue can always launch naval invasions to harass red if they want to, or just retreat their light units and re-engage in the city. The only advantage red doesn't really have an advantage at all, to be honest with you, because everyone's troops are relatively concentrated. Maybe blue's fronts are split, whereas red could really easily reinforce swap from each of these front lines if need be, making advantage of a time difference, a space difference for time. Right, you trading time in the north to attack the south or whatever. Obviously, there's a tank imbalance. It's relatively balanced in the south. Same amount of troops on the front line. Just this blue tank is obviously going to be ruining your day as it heads south, attacking these two central cities. This capital is really too far back in terms of combat depth, and this is a really hard city to capture or even reinforce, so there's no point in attacking. Blues are very easily going to get overextended up here, so everyone should basically just be pulling these troops back, and I would almost always prefer to play blue on this map. It's a relatively newer map, so not a lot of strategies have figured it out. Blue can theoretically pose a naval invasion here, so naval invasion opportunities. The blue city being in a force here makes it more easy to defend. So yeah, this is a newer map. I don't really have a good strategy, so we'll kind of see as we play more and more of this. Not my favorite map. I think I tiered this under I don't enjoy it a lot. So one of the maps I don't enjoy. So that's map 26, and move on to map 27. Due to the new update, for whatever reason, I can't access my replays. So a lot of the footage that I wanted to show is just not there. So I'm just gonna be basically just map painting drawing lines on a map, which makes me a little bit sad. Map 27. So you saw some of my annotations earlier. This is an interesting map. I think I tiered this under Slugfest, which it is, because it is kind of slow. There's a couple ways to approach it. Red obviously has an advantage because all of their cities are concentrated, whereas blue, their forces are a little bit split up from this impassable terrain here. What you can do is red is swap this light unit with this tank here, so this tank will assault the light unit and you'll get an advantage, and red can almost always pull back their troops back to the city. Similar thing here. I mean, I don't know if blue's tank starts in the forest, so there's a little bit of morale disadvantage if it starts to attack. But the very scary is always going to be in the south here, because it's very easy to overextend if red pushes, and blue can collapse inward. The reason why has to do with this particular angle, right? If blue retreats, it's very easy for blue to retreat back to the city. But if red advances, it's very easy for red to collapse the front line by going downward. But if if blue advances and needs to retreat, it's very easy because they just swing back. Because blue is obviously their troops are far further ahead. So in terms of this like front line theory, whereas overextended units will get equalized, blue's front line is theoretically here, whereas red's front line is all the way back here. So it's very easy for red to get extended according to that front line theory. If we were going based on front lines, right? So because of this angle, very easy for red to get their troops trapped, which has happened to me on occasion from once or twice. What I've done before is take these units in the south, pull it back to low red into a false sense of security, and pull these blue troops down. When blue's troops are back here, you get fog of war, so red doesn't know where your troops are, so you could start to, if red ever retreats, you just reforce these blue units into that gap, and as I said before, because blue's front line or equal front line is roughly around here, you can push these units inward. Just make sure to not push too far behind red's enemy back lines, which is this front line right here. Otherwise, you're going to lose those units very easily. So back to map 27, another map where I'm blue. So I'm, Jackson Tundra. So as we said before, we see this blue retreat. Frontline theory states that red is around here. I have these units stuck in the fog of war. Better maneuvering on this particular map. So he's going to advance these forces. He's way beyond this frontline theory. So as you can tell, very easy to get encircled if he pulls it too far. I pull one light unit here. I don't want to pull these units just to not spook him, but I'm basically going to, because he's expanded his combat width so much, he's so far overextended that I'm just going to collapse in on him. And just very easily you're going to see that these units are going to get overwhelmed just because there's more combat width to be attacked into. And then we're just going to snowball here. We already have a troop advantage, and then we're basically going to take some units. He's basically retreating all of his troops, not microing as well because he's kind of busy, and then I'm basically just collapsing in on him. And it's just a matter of seeing who can micro. See, eventually he retreats to his front line where there's a balance and equilibrium. There's this swap maneuver, which is usually done by red. I just have slightly better micro, and with this micro advantage that I take advantage of, I'm basically just gonna, you know, push my advantage against him. There's this, we see this tank on light unit in the north. Usually you're doing this as red, and yeah, this game pretty much goes in my favor. Not much more to say there. But yeah, since red's forces are relatively focused in the north here, red's almost always attacking up here with this tank. And then blue, I think their advantage is down here in the south because red's city is here, so it's much easier to reinforce. Blue can obviously pull some reinforcements, but I almost always favor red in this combat scenario. I've played as blue, played as red, relatively balanced, but this is a very slugfest map. I mean, this open forest here allows for a lot of encirclements. I think we see a similar trait, I think, on some of the other maps. I forget which map this is similar to. I remember cycling between this and another map. Where's this open forest? Is it 17? No. 20? No. But this is not the first time I've seen these two chokeholds with an open forest area. It's also like the second half of, it's the bottom half of, it's the top half. So map 7 is actually split into two. Are they the same? 27? Where's the top half of this? Is this 28? No. Top half 28 is the second half. 29, no. Yeah, so map 30. You'll see this is the top half of it. That's why it looks so similar. There's the open forest. But yeah, relatively straightforward map. Just very much a slugfest, not a map I particularly enjoy. So let's move on to map 28. The peninsula. So this is paired with map 17. I think this one's a little bit more boring than map 17 because there's a little bit more strategy involved. If you like slugfests, I really like map 17's top bottom. So the blue strong side is on top, red strong side is on bottom. A lot of strategies. This one is much more favored in terms of blue, in terms of naval invasion. I find this one to be a lot more slugfesty. This is a lot more very micro heavy. Where did I rate this one on the map tier list? So we have left side for challenging, which makes sense. I enjoy this one. And then where's the right side? Did I put it on top? I better have not put it on top. Yeah, relatively balanced in terms of blue. Red, sorry. So what the consensus is you pull these two tank units and pull them to the top. Actually, no, three tank units to the top, two tank units to the south. You could squeeze two light units here, and that'll give you free up two units to retreat. We're gonna be looking at map 28. So this is I'm blue against Dottore MD. Dottore MD has solid fundamentals, uh, but I think his familiarity with the maps are a little bit weak. He doesn't have a lot of that experience because he does make some small mistakes on this opening. So it took me 5 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes to get this match. So I had this running idle in the background. That's why I'm not moving at the beginning. But yeah, we're both accumulating funds. So he takes a very interesting perspective. He puts four red tanks in the south, which is an option. I think it's risky. His mistake here is that he gets stuck on this impassable obstacle. He didn't retreat properly. That's why I always like to retreat two in the north and three in the north and two in the south, just because it's easier to retreat. And basically, just this gives me a solid advantage. I mean, I basically accumulate troops. There's a 3-to-1 battlefront. I retreat the city back to heal, and then this opportunity cost of having five fully healed light units means that those are units that are not going to be in the front line. Because I kill this tank and I notice there's a tank disparity, he has three tanks in the south. I'm going to take these tanks units up and attack in the north up here. Um, the reason why you want only two down here is because it's very fast to heal these tanks as long as you pull the tanks back to the city here, to this frontline city. So this is basically a pretty standard opening, exploiting various gaps. I mean, these three tanks are going to be slow. It's relatively easy to pull it to these forces in the north, but you're basically taking course of any advantage. He has to manage these troops in the back. I mean, he builds two tanks, which I think will help him in the long run. But I accumulate such an advantage here, and then I'm constantly attacking and not allowing him to do stuff, that it gives me a pretty solid advantage in this game. Not much more to say. Pretty good opening. I capture the city. So as you can see, his War of Dots micro isn't like super solid yet. But it's just a very good demonstration of just a solid opening, especially if you don't retreat well. So make sure you're retreating well on this map in particular. I wish I had more footage of this. I definitely have much more exciting games, but as I said before, my replays for what the game won't allow me to play my past replays, which is really frustrating me because I do have a lot of good past games uh, from when the update happened. It's just my replays aren't allowed to be viewed. The reason why this is favored in terms of blue is because there's a lot of naval targets here. There are these three cities here. This red city is going to be pretty well defended. These two cities are not just because they're so far away from the back line. You send these two naval units in here in the fog of war, sail them around, and send them to the back. What that forces red to do is it forces them to put two units on these cities, which means the opportunity cost is you will be able to get a nice offensive. You'll be able to have a unit advantage of 2-to-1 since red has to garrison these two cities. They could garrison one, but that means they're gonna have to focus a lot of attention on moving one light unit between these two cities, even as you send your boat to scout around this island. I think you could do it in complete navigation of this outer circle, so that's very interesting. What also happens is that these caverns here are very useless. It's very hard for red to invade because blue is very easily going to encircle them behind it. And blue theoretically could launch a naval invasion, but I think it's just more effort than it's worth. It may be interesting as a surprise attack, but blue is very easily able to retreat back here. And if blue really needs to run, they can just run through this, and then red's very easily going to get overextended. This path is just a dead end. You just do not want to go back here. Yeah, so in terms of combat depth, Red's capital is so much closer to the front line than Blue. Blue's in the forest. Obviously, you're going to send troops to the north. That's my usual strategy because if the city's quite easy to reinforce. Whereas Red, it's a little bit further away. They can, but because they're forced to guard these two cities, and then Red can't really naval invade because Blue cities are too far inland, and the Red units will get encircled and lose morale quite quickly. Blue has a lot more opportunities to naval invade, so it's relatively imbalanced. And if we look, this is not on Trey's and L's tier list because I forgot to add it. But yeah, relatively straightforward map. I would say it's relatively blue-sided. Yeah, although for whatever reason, I think I enjoy playing red a little bit more, even though blue is a crushing advantage. I don't think it's my favorite map. Yeah, it's relatively unbalanced, and it's not one of the fun maps I enjoy playing. So that's map 28. We'll move on to the second to last map, map 29. Peninsula maps. I hate these peninsula maps This reminds me a lot of the other peninsula map here. I think it's map number 4 or map number 1. One of those early bridges maps. New. No, sorry. This distracted me. What's this one? Is this 25? I think this is 4 and 27, I think, are similar. No, I think it's 24. Yeah, 4 and 24 are similar in terms of this back line. Hopefully, I was kind of focusing on that. 29 is very similar to 7 or 8, one of these peninsula maps. Yes, the peninsula map. So you have these island peninsulas here, which is the troop disparity, where you're forcing someone to attack another map. Um. Oh no, this is the map. Whoops. 29. So the reason why I don't like these types of maps is due to the peninsula in front. The jumping Java said I forgot to add this to the map pool, so very interesting. Um, Red is obviously going to have to defend the city because even though it has two bridges to reinforce, Blue's force is a lot more concentrated in the south here, so they could start attacking. What I find that I end up doing is I will almost always pull these units in the north back, whether it's red or blue. Put a tank on the city, keep a light unit there as support or reinforcement, and then you have 2 extra free units to just go roam around. Blue is a little bit of a harder time because it has to cross the bridge, but whoever could get their tanks down south will have an advantage in the south. I find against um, regular opponents. You could even retreat this because there's no point in sending off this island. Theoretically, yes, there's a lot of naval invasions. A lot of the higher level players, I have no doubt, are going to just exploit any sort of micro advantage in the north, whether it's crossing this river, fording this river, or using this island as a jumping off point since this is a blue, it starts off as blue territory. Theoretically, blue's weak point is going to be this city, but because of a lot of these river crossings and red having the city so far forward, I think this is relatively in favor of blue. Blue has a lot easier reinforcements. Their cities are all on just one concentrated landmass, where blue has to kind of cross this river. Um, like theoretically, the balance should be here. But because of this peninsula, it's more like here, right? So like these are like the natural barrier obstacles. Um, so almost always just plant units on cities to accumulate funds. Uh, Blue almost always is going to retreat. Theoretically, you could cycle your units to the north to try and naval invade. This is a valid strategy. If you capture this bridge, you cut off their retreat. But it takes a couple units to naval invade, and blue would probably be watching, so they'll be using these units as well. Um, a lot of this forest terrain makes it hard for blue to retreat. Blue almost always wants to attack into the city. This is mostly just focusing on good cycle. And if I note, this is probably a slugfest. And I think it is. Where did I put this? Relatively challenging? Where's the peninsula map? It is, yeah, relatively challenging. Not quite a slugfest, but it's getting there. Not my favorite map. And let's take a look at map 30. Whoops. The final map and the most recent one that I added. So this is the second half of map 26, the top half of map 26, or sorry, 27, or map 7 of Trey's and L's tier list here. Whoops, I need to do 30. So this is an interesting map. Red obviously has the northern advantage with 2 tanks in the north, but tank on tank violence is not recommended. I almost always like Blue's position. There's a dynamic balance to this. What you could do, because blue has an extra tank in the south, you could attack downward. What I actually prefer is swapping this light unit and putting it here and putting this tank and attacking this light unit just to get through a breakthrough. Be wary of any sort of breakthroughs or runaways. So usually you want these stagnated. If not, you want to retreat these because it's very easy to attack into it and then get city captured based on invading forces. So because of these large forests here, very easy for encirclements. Frontline theory dictates that blue's front line is relatively skewed over here, and then red's front line is back here because of just this angle, this attack angle. Whereas blue could concentrate, swing their forces back, and catch any units off guard and just to kill them, especially with that tank. And then similarly, yeah, so red has to be wary of any invasions attacking upward, just because blue's front line is a lot further forward than red is. Red kind of has to retreat back just due to this very specific angle, since blue can always swing these uh, further east units back west and just, encircle units. So red has to be wary of that. The reason why red is much more interesting is because of these two cities down here. It's very easy to reinforce and swap fronts, unlike with map 3. Um, in map 3, which is interesting, you don't have that sort of swapping front lines just because it's so concentrated. Um, Red obviously just has a lot of territory and backline to work with. Their combat depth is a lot more. If blue wants to reinforce these two cities, they have to go through all this impassable terrain, which makes it very hard to defend these two blue cities. You have to dedicate at least 2 troops, which only leaves 3 troops on the front line. Whereas red at any moment can pull red troops here and make it a 5-on-3 or even 7-on-3 battle, since you could squeeze 2 extra forces here. So this will be a 5-on-3 and 3-on-2. So for map 30, we're going to look at my battle against Nukas, who's blue. I'm in red. So blue correctly identifies he needs to garrison these two cities. The problem with doing so is that obviously get this 3-on-1 attack, and blue has no reinforcements, as we mentioned before. Like, I even have a 4th unit, so I have 4 free units just roaming around. And blue, if they try to attack, I just pull these units off the front line here. So as I said before, if these units aren't retreated well, these units are going to get encircled in the south. I also have to be wary of not getting encircled myself, so I'm advancing this. But I basically almost get a free light unit here. This tank is here to support. I need to pull some units off the front line to support this, since he has a 1 unit on the capital. But definitely blue can, well, it's hard to say if blue can do encirclement property, but because blue has such a limited number of units, like, very easy for my units to encircle his units or attack these cities here. So blue really needs to rush to reinforce in the south here. Just a very scary position overall for blue in general, right? See, I'm trading space for time. I have pulling these units off the front line. Yes, blue can rush, but like there's such a strong force here that it's very risky to do any sort of maneuvers. Blue should almost always retreat in the south, or or focus on some sort of battle or breakthrough, because these two cities are going to fall very, very quickly, especially with the troop count that blue has. So they should almost go full defense, to be honest with you, uh, for these two cities here. So relatively red-sided, but very easy and fun to play for red. Um, what I like to do is attack with the tank here, just so I could rush another unit attacking these cities. I think it's much more dangerous as blue to attack these cities, because red has a lot quicker reinforcement, whereas if blue is trying to attack, it's very easy to get overrun. So I definitely think this is relatively unbalanced for red, just because of red's quick reinforcement and position rates with their cities here. Um, but yeah, so blue needs to defend these cities with all their might, and then red just has a very easy time just attacking these two cities down here. Um, but yeah, because of blue's extra tank, you're basically going to try and kill a unit as quick as possible. It's very easy to get these units encircled if red retreats wrong, right? If red overextends, you could squeeze blue in and encircle these two units if these two units get too far in. So a lot of encirclement opportunities. I enjoy this because I think it's a really dynamic map. Because of the decisions based on these two cities in the back, these 4 tanks for blue, and if red wants to attack in the north. I think attacking in the north is futile. You definitely need to retreat, but if you retreat, you give blue a lot of opportunity just to swing their forces and just collapse this red front line, because this red city is literally on the front line of where it would be easy for red units to get encircled. So definitely, if blue plays their cards right, they could theoretically split the battlefront down the center, where you have 2 cities here and these 3 back cities here. Um, but a majority of the time, I find that it favors red. I like to see some more opening theory based on some higher level players to see some unique play, but almost always there's just going to be some micro differences and just going to be some. This force is deadly in terms of encirclement. And yeah, so that's basic theory for this particular map. Hopefully, I'm able to throw some replays, but I think I'm just going to be drawing lines on a map just because I don't know why a lot of my replay files are missing. Maps, like my first I can only have up to 60 replays, and for whatever reason, only 30 replays are showing up. The other 30 keep getting automatically deleted when I try to view the replays in War of Dots. But yeah, that finally completes my 30 maps. Where did I put this in terms of map balance? I think I put this under challenge. No, I didn't put. Really, I didn't put it under challenging. Yeah, I did put it under challenging. It's one of the ones I really enjoy just because there's a very nice dynamic to that map that makes it fun. But yeah, that wraps it up for the War of Dots 1v1 map pool, map openings. Hope you enjoyed, and yeah, see you guys on the Discord server if you want to do your own tier list. Uh, I I've probably put the link in the description. And yeah, that's the War of Dots 1v1 map pool openings. Final 26 to 30.